between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Marcus gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Good evening and welcome for round 3 of the Fabarth Cup here at the Red Bull Ring, VRRC League of Champions. My name is Steve Proudley and tonight I'm joined as ever by Dave Marshall. Good evening, Dave.
How are you doing, Steve? You keep well?
Yeah, very well, buddy. Enjoying the Christmas break, as I'm sure most people are. But tonight, back to business. The Red Bull Ring, 2 races. Only 4 more races left in this part of the championship. It's all to play for with 2 of the guys tied at the top, Dave.
Yeah, couldn't be closer going to round 3, could it? Top 2 guys tied, but also second place taking a 50% weight reduction. So Jack McIntyre's took a 50% weight reduction going into this round. Whereas Jordan Brennan's kept on full weight, I presume, hoping that his weight reduction will come next round. So be interested to see how much it plays out, whether this was the right track to take that weight reduction at, or whether it would benefit Jordan with the next one.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, obviously the Red Bull Ring, we're just looking at the track layout on the screen now. 2.6 miles long, lots of straights, lots of slipstreaming opportunities, and the word is from the pit lane that basically maybe, just maybe, the tyres won't be as much of an issue this evening. Is that right, Dave? Yeah,
so you know, you set off from the line as we see on the graphic on screen, the very bottom line, into turn 1, which is a right-hander, up towards the hairpin. So you can see the distance between turn 1 and turn 2 is absolutely massive. So there's a huge overtaking opportunity in the slipstream. And then you go around turn 2 and there's another long straight all the way down to turn 3, which is the top right corner on your screen at the moment. So you've got, you know, 2 really long straights to break up corners. So if a driver's really careful on his tyres, he might be able to make softs work during the race. Personally, I wouldn't risk it. I would go on mediums, but we'll wait and see what the driver does.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because as we've seen in the previous races, we talk about tyre management, but when the lights go out and the racing starts, it's very difficult to manage anything because there's usually someone either pushing from behind or you're pushing to get past somebody. So management's to a degree goes out the window and it's just pushing as hard as you can. Obviously, we're here at the Red Bull Ring this evening. As you can see on the screen, we've got 1 more round at Majoni next week for 2 20-minute races, with the second one being a reverse top 12, so plenty of points still to play for, but we've got Jordan Brennan at the moment up there in first place, haven't we, with 61 points, and Jack McIntyre tying with 61 points. Jack's not as on the pace tonight in practice, but we've seen that over the last few weeks and he seems to be able to put in a pretty good showing during the race. And just see the standings on the screen there, so I'll just run through them quickly. Jordan Brennan, as I say, in first, Jack McIntyre tied with 61 points, Charlie Oliver in third, Max Edmondson fourth, Isaac Smith fifth, Robbie Stapleford, who's been showing some good pace if he hasn't had the look at, you know, the sort of run of the look every week, in sixth. Mike Epps in seventh. Mike, again, a really quick driver, just not being able to he's had a few issues. In the first round he joined us, a technical issue. Then I think in the second race last week, if my memory serves me well, he retired the car, but he's certainly he's the man to watch. He's the man that's setting the times alight in practice this evening. So you know, it's all to play for. I mean, Martin Johnson in 8th, Andy Dorman 9th, and rounding out the top 10 in the championship, we've got Andy Carroll. But yeah, Mike Epps, he's a man to watch, isn't he? Yeah,
I think looking at practice before this race, you know, Mike's got the pace. He's set the benchmark for what's possible in these cars. You know, he's got a lot of experience in single seaters with the likes of Formula 4. You know, he is the benchmark. We've got Jordan Brennan, who, you know, he's carrying maximum weight going into this round. And I was actually looking in the championship standings there. Both Jack McIntyre and Charlie Oliver have both taken a 50% weight reduction. So that actually means Jordan Brennan is the heaviest car on track by quite a margin. So whether Jordan will go into this round with thinking damage limitation and just try and get a points haul and bring it home is probably the tactic I expect him to see him go with. But if he sees Jack struggling on pace, he might try jump on that while Jack's got that weight reduction and really try and increase that lead.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to nip over to social media now and say good evening to Michelle Dunn, who's on the chat saying good luck to Jordan. Good evening to Dave Jones and Cat Cool, who is Rick. Evening, fellas. So good evening to Rick. And yes, we had a good Christmas, mate, and hope you did too. But just back to the boys on the track tonight. The ones, we're talking about Jordan Brennan being the heaviest car. This isn't going to be the easiest track to defend at, is it? Because of the slipstreams and because of there's three. Definitely two, if not three, clear opportunities to overtake into the braking zones. And I say definitely two because I think turn one is a very difficult corner to get up the inside of someone because there's that opportunity to run slightly wide and defend that position a bit. It's you've got to be quite brave at turn one, I think, to try and stuff it up the inside, Dave.
Yeah, so as we see here, Jack, on screen here, this is coming in the last corner at the start-finish line straight. Now, this for me, if we're coming up behind Jack now, this is a really key time to get in that slipstream. And whether there's a long enough straight here to pull alongside, it can be really force Jack to try and defend here into turn one, then give him the run down this whole straight to turn two. So it's all about setting the corner up in advance. It's not necessarily, eyeing a driver up to make a move into that corner. It's trying to get him to defend, to ruin his run out of that corner, and then you can get him on the next one. So, that all works fine and well if there's no one behind you. But then it can also lose you a heck of a lot of time if there's a train behind you and then someone sees that opportunity of you trying to then get the cut back, and it can get very messy very quickly if too many cars are involved.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, it's okay you sort of eyeing up the move and trying to send it up the inside, as it were, and gain a position. But if you don't get that position, obviously, like you say, you're leaving yourself wide open to attack from behind. And as we've seen in previous weeks at previous races, for the opening few laps, certainly, it's just like one big train of cars going through. These cars do follow fairly well in the slipstream, and they take very well to the slipstream, don't they?
Yeah, so this is going to be a really key race, and I don't think we're going to see it in qualifying. This is going to be really key for someone to try and work with someone else here in the race, because as soon as we start battling on these long straights, you're going to lose tenths and tenths per straight. So if we can get two people to work together and help pull away and swap slipstreams constantly throughout the race, and then maybe later on in the race go, right, it's getting near the end of the race now we battle. That would be the strategy if you've got someone to work with. As we know, a lot of these drivers are racing completely by themselves, so this might be a case of just all out, whoever passes.
Yeah, absolutely. We're just watching Oliver now in sixth place. As it stands, he's just about to complete a lap, and he actually moves up to second place with a 1:29.5. That is behind Mike Epps with a 1:29.3. We saw Mike in practice do a 29.1, I think it was, Dave, pretty much knocking on the door of the 1:28s. We haven't seen the 1:28s yet, but there was a lot of guys. In fact, most of the guys, I would say, were in those. Were in the 29s, weren't they? Or albeit just about in there. They're all pretty close.
Yeah, so Mike had probably about 2 to 3 tenths by the fastest lap. But other than that, the rest of the drivers were starting to filter into them sort of 29.4, 29.5, 29.6. So I'm expecting to see by the end of this qualifying, we could end up with, second down to sixth, separated by only about 0.3 of a second, which it's already, half a second now. So we'll wait and see whether them times come down a bit closer. But this could lead to some really, really interesting racing with the slipstream.
Yeah, and I know we're sort of talking a lot about the slipstream, but it is going to have a massive effect this evening. And just on the top speed, when we were looking at the the timing screens, some of the guys are hitting 138 just over miles an hour. Some of the guys are only just managing 136. Do you think that's all down to slipstreaming, or is there a certain amount of variation on the setups as well?
I would have thought, looking at the leaderboard there with the 138s, I would have thought basically all of them are done with standalone laps. So by that I mean not in any sort of slipstream. That's really just shown. So we saw Paul Laramie there in the last portion of the circuit all of that's relatively twisty and longer corners. Whereas you see Max is coming in into turn 1, up the long stretch to turn 2. All this area is not aero dependent at all. You want as little aero as possible. So you're probably seeing a variation between drivers who think they're going to have the advantage later on in the track versus some of the drivers that have gone for really low aero and trying to gain the advantage at the start of the lap. So what that probably tends to lend itself to is a driver who's got the lesser aero will be more aggressive down them straights, trying to do the late brake, the late lunge, as dare we say, you saw Max Edmondson do last week.
Yeah,
you will get it in there. But yeah, you know, we'll wait and see. It's going to be really hard for a guy to try and think they've got a car that is balanced in both areas. I would have thought if a car is picking up significant margin in the later sector, then it's going to really struggle in the beginning sectors. So, you know, I would have said, looking at the strategy of this race with the slipstream and that, it's going to be better to have a car with less aero and really push the guys down the straight.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's panning out at the moment, we've got Mike Epps up there with that 129.1. Charlie Oliver doing a fantastic job this evening. I mean, he had a good strong run last week, but he's currently in second place on the front row of the grid. The guy that's missing up at the sharp end, I would say, that I would expect him to be in the top 6 is Robbie Stapleford, who seems to be, he's down in 16th at the moment. So I'm wondering if he's just had a few dirty laps and he's just trying to compose himself, because we're coming into the sort of last 6.5 minutes of qualifying, approaching pretty quickly as we've picked up Robbie Stapleford, so hopefully he's going to, like I say, I expect Robbie to be up in the top 6.
Yeah, I would expect Robbie to be, you know, pushing that top 6, top 5 position, as we see him just really pushing the limits of the track, getting very, very wiggly there on the exit. I must point out, these corner exits, for all it might look like, you know, a driver's exceeding track limits a little bit, we're being relatively lenient with that, because a lot of the places you see there, they've got a massive sausage curb on exit. So realistically, if you run wide, the car bottoms out anyway and you lose time and grip. So if any driver you think's gaining time by running slightly wide on exit or whatever, you know, we'll look at data, but on the whole, it tends to mean that they've actually lost time rather than gained it. So maybe Robbie just hasn't quite hooked the lap up, or maybe he's had traffic. Don't quite know, but yeah, it's not common for Robbie to be struggling to get into that top 10.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a few guys down there. It's always a very, very close grid to watch, and you know, there's any number of guys could make the top 6 on any given week. I mean, we've got Rob Butler down in 12th. That's another one. Max Bird in 15th currently. You know, they're definitely you know, names that you would expect to be up in the top 10. And I'm sure as we sort of come into the last 5 minutes of quali now, we start to see shuffle a little bit as the guys manage to put the laps in. You know, because I mean, if they are pushing, as we saw Robbie pushing and really sort of using all the track and maybe losing a bit of time by getting a little bit out of shape, he's going to have to maybe just calm it down a little bit and go for a safe lap just to get a decent time in.
Yeah, I mean, different drivers have different quality techniques. I quite like myself to try and just get a good safe lap in initially to take the pressure off, knowing that, you know, you can relax a bit into it then and try and hook up after that. But some drivers like to just come out the block and trying to go as fast as they physically can. But the danger is, you know, you don't hook that lap up and you end up with not a time on the board and you'll be down near the bottom. But as you see Robbie Stapleford there, he's put a time within 0.6, and this is what I was saying before. Look at the gap between sort of second place and 8th place there. You know, it's separated by like half a second. It's going to lead for some really, really close racing this.
Yeah, definitely. As we just see Mike Epps pushing it beyond the limits there, as he just had a little bit of a spin. But yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, you know, the times are all close, which is good. Which, you know, the lap times are very close, which means the race, hopefully, they're going to stick together and give us a good show tonight with the slipstreaming, with the overtakes, with the outbreaks. And, you know, they've had a few races now in these cars. They've had a hell of a lot of practice, I would imagine, because I know all these guys do put a lot of hours in, a lot of laps to fine tune the setups and to you know, build on the racecraft and find out what the best strategies are for these cars. But it's going to be some fantastic racing, I think, tonight, and I wouldn't be one to call it. I think personally, I always put my neck on the chopping block, as it were, and say that Mike Epps is probably my favourite to take the win in race 1 for definite. Race 2, last week we had a really high attrition rate, so race 2 is a little bit more tricky, as we just seen. I'm not quite sure it was that was it Johnson? Yeah, Johnson just spun it. But yeah, I think Mike Epps has got to be favourite, hasn't he, for this race 1?
Yeah, so actually, I just noticed there, Robbie Stapleton's just going to put it second on the grid, but noticeably a lot faster in the last sector of the track. So are we seeing here, maybe Robbie's got a car setup that's really benefiting the high aero end of the track? That's what it looks like to me. That might mean he might get eaten alive off the start, down the straight into turn 2 and turn 3. But if he can hold his own through there, he'll be really putting the pressure on Mike at the end of the first lap. But just as you were saying before with the practice, and we run 10-10s coaching as well, which you can buy setups and get coaching for telemetry and data and racecraft, and even follow laps if you want an instructor out on track with you, which is the big advantage with sim coaching. Robin Walters actually got in contact with 10-10s and said, this week I'm really struggling with time, either work commitments or whatever. Can I have a setup, because I don't have time to put the hours in? And he bought a setup yesterday afternoon. He's come in and put 3/10 off pole today. So I'm not taking it away. Robin is a great driver, but it just shows, it has its benefits.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can drive the wheels off a car, but you can always get that bit more out of it with a good setup on it. And if there's one out there to use like that, and you say he's coming and he's in 4th place on the grid as it stands at the minute, that's money well spent in my book. And I mean, just going back to what you were saying about qualifying technique, I'm very much the same as you, where you like to go out, put a banker lap in, and then just build from there. If the qualifying session allows you to get 6 or 7 laps in, usually tyres permitting, I'll fuel up myself and just stay out there and build up. Yeah. And I think that works for me, and I think that works for a lot of drivers. I think it's a very rare few that can come straight out of the pit box and just stick that ultimate fastest lap in.
Yeah, the Lewis Hamilton of the grid.
Absolutely, but yeah, I was refraining from saying that, but yeah, you said it.
Yeah, well, maybe we're seeing Lewis Hamilton, or should I say Mike Epps, on the grid. But yeah, we just saw, if anyone not quite understand what was going on there with Jordan Brennan, that's just really respectful driving. There was probably 3 or 4 cars behind him, and he just pulled right out onto the grass, just to give them a nice bit of space and not mess up their quali lap. But we're going to see Jack here try and get onto pole as the line comes up now into 2nd place, incredibly close with Robbie Stapleford there, but still, a 10th and a half off Mike Epps' time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's also so very close, and Jack McIntyre's done it to us again, hasn't he? Because in practice he was he wasn't doing those times. He didn't seem to be doing the 29.3s. He was more of the higher end 29. So that's a great lap from Jack McIntyre. And as ever with Jack, when he needs to do it, he does it.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see the race strategy here. Jack's put it on 2nd place. He knows Robbie's racy. He's done the same lap time, and I don't know whether he'll be looking at the sector times to see where Robbie's car was strong. Jack's car looked very, very quick off the line and very quick down the straights. But yeah, Jordan Brennan's down in 9th place, so vice versa. Jack McIntyre might be looking at that and going, I've got sort of 6/10 on Jordan's car. Am I going to settle for bringing home the points here, 2nd or 3rd place, and make Jordan work for it, make him fight through the pack to get that points haul? It's going to be a one to watch for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you say, it's going to be one to watch. Jack McIntyre and Jordan Brennan, the 2 guys that are really at the sharp end of the championship, so they'll want to be taking as many points away tonight as the clock has run to 0. Qualifying has finished. We're just waiting for the final few cars to cross the line. But yeah, I mean, Jordan Brennan, Jack McIntyre, they are, the boys at the top of the championship. Charlie Oliver's not that far, 10 points back in 3rd place, so still definitely not out of it. But Jack, we know, has got a good head on his shoulders for fighting for championships, and he knows when to push and when to just calculate the points and take the points, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, saying that, we're looking at the championship standings here, and I think what we're noticing with this championship in particular, that the single-seater discipline, with the reverse grid, it's really messing things up regarding championship standings. The cars are proven very hard to go wheel to wheel with, as is any open wheel discipline. You know, it's not the same as tin tops where cars can take a bit of a bash and, you know, things like that. So, you know, we're seeing drivers really struggle with the reverse grid. So, I mean, the championship isn't split up by that many points. You know, it's only split up by, let's say, 20 points in the top 7. And bear in mind, Mike Epps has missed probably 2, if not 3 of those races, and he's still in 7th place. So we could see Mike Epps really try and close that gap to them top 3 by the end of the season.
Yeah, well, Mike Epps has put it on pole position this evening with a 128.996, so he's scraped into the 28s. Jack McIntyre in second place with a 129.13. Robbie Stapleford in third with a 129.3.19, so 6 thousandths of a second between those two guys. Charlie Oliver in a very respectable fourth place, Max Edmondson fifth, Robin Walters sixth, Max Bird seventh, Isaac Smith 8th, Andy Dorman 9th, and rounding out the top 10 is our man Jordan Brennan. So really, really close and interesting qualifying. Jordan's given himself quite a lot to do, but as you say, he's carrying you know, a lot of the ballast. So it's going to be an interesting race.
Yeah, I don't think you should read too much into that with Jordan. You know, he's carrying a lot of weight over the likes of, you know, Robbie, Jack, and Mike. But that's not to say, you know, that the race won't come to him. You know, he's in 10th place, but he's still got the pace. He's still got the pace to, you know, push for them higher positions. So it's all going to come down to racecraft and how smart the drivers are with the slipstream. But I believe we've got Mike Epps down in the interview room, so we'll go and see how the world he did that lap, eh?
Go for it, buddy. Yeah, have a good chat with Mike.
Yeah, I got you.
Spot on. Well, I should have put a bet on with Rich, I think, going into that race, because, you know, I'd heard you said a 28 wasn't possible, and I said, well, anything's possible with Mike behind the wheel. So fair play on the 28.9 on the very last lap.
Was it a 9.9? It came up as a 9.0 on my screen. So
yeah, it was 28.996. So 4 thousandths into the 28s.
Jesus.
I take it that was that a hooked up lap, or have you got a little bit more left still, or?
There's a little bit left on one corner in the middle sector, but otherwise pretty hooked up. So just came together. I actually spun on the first lap of that second run, and I was sat there like, oh, okay, right, maybe I'll just be experimental here, and then got the next lap hooked up, and it went really nice. So it's so sketchy around here. Like the track limits use and the curbs are just so inconsistent. So it's
Yeah, I mean, what we're noticing here is that I don't know whether you're looking at the sector times for other cars, but a lot of cars are running very different strategies with the likes of what appears to be aero changes. So there's some cars that are very strong at the end of the lap, but not strong at the start. I take it, you know, looking at your sectors, obviously your car's really strong in the straights and what have you. But are you worried in the later sectors whether there's going to be a car that's going to be able to come back at you in the later sectors, or?
I guess it depends. If they're that strong, then maybe. But I've got a similar setup for the race, and it's quite balanced on mediums. It all depends on how long they last, I suppose, doesn't it? But yeah, we'll find out, won't we? Of course, there's the track limit situation as well. But I think, to be honest, we should be okay. If it's that strong in a straight line, it's quite hard to set up an overtake. But you never know. We'll wait and see. I might have an adjustment for the second race.
I was actually going to quickly touch on tyres, because I wasn't going to be as rude to ask you what tyres you're going on, but I had heard mixed strategies where some people were going to gamble on going out on softs for the whole race. I take it you don't think that's a strategy that would work out, do you not?
Don't think so. I haven't tried a long run on the softs personally, so if any of them are eagle-eared and listening, I'm on the medium, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all fun and games, isn't it? Until until the computer crashes. So yeah,
it is. Well, well, so far your tech issues seem to be, touch wood. Have I got a bit of wood here? There we go.
So far, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with your driving. It's just your tech issues. But yeah, I mean, typical racing driver. Yeah, great lap, Mike. Top job for putting it on first place. And I'll let you go and get in the zone, ready for the race.
Yeah. Cheers, mate.
No problem, mate.
So Mike Epps all ready, put himself in the best position possible, pole position alongside Jack McIntyre in second, so it's a very, very strong front rows you would expect from a qualifying session like that. It's going to be interesting into turn one. Obviously, if Jack can get it off the line, he's got the inside line there on Mike, but I don't think maybe I make that sound a bit too easy.
To be fair, if someone was to put it up the inside of me, I might just keep my foot in it and run wide purposely on the first corner, dare I say. You know, you can get away with things like that if there's not the room for error, because the last thing you want is to be backing out for a guy up your inside and then you end up with a whole pack running at the back of you. But yeah, the lights are on. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, so we just wait for the lights to come on now as they are coming on, and it's basically we have the red lights and we are go. Jack gets a good start, but it looks like Mike Epps gets an even better start as he's moving away strongly up into the front. The rest of the field get away relatively clean. It looks like Mike's taking that wide line. Jack's on the inside, looking like Robbie Stapleford was trying to put it round the outside of Jack McIntyre there. A few cars, as you say, taking the decision to run wide, but it's all fairly clean, and it looks like everyone's got away, and Robbie Stapleford looks to be tucked well into the back of Jack McIntyre, but Mike Epps looks to have maybe got a bit of a gap.
Yeah, I'll let you take a little bit of a breath there, Steve. Yeah, it was a manic start there, but actually I was just about to say on the whole relatively clean there, but I think all the drivers have actually managed to have a little bit of a... I mean, how do you commentate on that? Look, it's 5 wide.
It's 5 wide. There was a fair bit of contact, but everybody stayed on the track. Yeah, absolutely. So maybe we won't need that safety car, but it's looking like Robbie Stapleford has got down the inside of Jack McIntyre, and Robbie Stapleford is the man on the move. He's really pushing. Jack McIntyre really didn't look, from what we saw, didn't put too much of a defence up, just let Robbie go. Like you say, he knows Robbie's fairly racy, and with the previous races with the tyres going off, maybe Jack's thinking, you know, I'll tell you what, I'll just let him push and push. He's going to come back to me in the latter stages of the race, maybe.
Yeah, well, what's really interesting is there, you know, I said Robbie's car looked really strong in this later part of the sector, and he's managed to already get the move on Jack in the early stage. So you can see there, he's probably pulled 3 to 4 car lengths in that later sector that might have just broke the toe on Jack here. So Robbie's done a top job there to try and get himself past Jack. Behind, you know, you've got about 4 cars in the line, but is that going to be a safety car, I believe safety car is deployed. That's a huge shame for Mike Epps there, because obviously, you know, he pulled a nice gap there in lap 1, but you know, the grid's all going to be held up behind the safety car, and it's going to be slipstream central after. So
yeah, but more importantly for Mike Epps this time, he's going to have Robbie Stapleford tucked under his rear wing.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So you know, Robbie's obviously done what he needs to do to get into that second place, and you know, as you were saying there, he got past Jack pretty quickly, and he got his foot down in that where his car was strongest in the later stages, and sort of you're pretty correct, I think, in respect of he'd probably broken the toe, but if he is running higher downforce than Mike, he needed it. This is really played into his hands, because I think any sort of a gap behind Mike would have been a hard one to make up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what I'm really interested to see is I would imagine the safety car be in this lap. I can see on the grid graphic on my commentary screen that the rest of the grid is almost caught up to the back of this train, so we should go after this lap. But yeah, if Mike gets a good start and drops Robbie's going to find it really hard to get onto the slipstream of Mike here. But if Robbie jumps this start and gets a really good launch onto the back of Mike, you know, Mike could be in real issues here halfway around this opening lap.
Yeah, we should obviously just need to mention Max Bird. He's up into 4th place. So it's Charlie Oliver, the one that lost out on the start really there. He's down 1 place to 5th. We've got Isaac Smith lined up in 6th place, Robin Walters 7th, Max Edmondson 8th, Rob Butler 9th, and Brennan still in 10th place, as it looks like we're coming round now to take the green flag and let's get racing again. And is Robbie Stapleford close enough? Has he matched Mike's start?
What I have noticed, Steve, is Jack didn't read that start very well, and Max Bird's actually going to have a look at going up into turn 1. If we can get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jack's going to do the outside move. You can see there, that sausage curb there completely benched Jack's car. So you'd have had no traction there at all. Just keeping his foot in it and hoping that car stays straight. But I think Max has just done enough to get down the inside. But then he's got Charlie Oliver trying to get past him. There's 3 cars going into the hairpin. My guess is Jack's going to probably go on the outside, get the traction. He's got the gap on Max. Good drive.
Yeah, and just to mention on the restart, turn 1, Max Edmondson was the biggest loser there as they came through turn 1. He spun into what was the pit exit, so he's now back down to 16th place, so big loser there. Max Bird and Isaac Smith battling away, looking like swapping places 4th and 5th as we were just following Max round now. So yeah, these the Fabarth are not disappointing, as we can see there, three cars on a piece of time, but really where there should only be one.
Yeah, as we see Charlie Oliver trying to go around the outside of Isaac there. Isaac just doesn't take any prisoners around the outside. You know, he's quite happy to just run his car wide, as he nearly runs wide himself at the curb there. But Max Bird must have had an altercation there with Jack McIntyre as well, or got a bit sideways, because he's dropped all the way off the back of Jack, and now it's got Isaac right on his wing.
Yeah, I was going to say, Isaac looking pretty racy there, weaving, just letting him know he's there and looking for an opportunity, as we've seen someone else just go a bit sideways. I think that was Mr. Mick Sutton there, just lost it coming out of the last turn and a little bit broadside. But yeah, it's really Mike Epps. He's he's only 3/10 up from Robbie Stapleford, so Robbie Stapleford is doing a fantastic job of hanging on to Mike Epps. Jack McIntyre's dropped back a little bit, he's 2.3 seconds back in 3rd, with Max Bird just holding on 8/10 behind Jack McIntyre at the minute. Isaac Smith, as we saw, pushing Max Bird. Jordan Brennan's on the move, he's battling here, as we can see, with Robin Walters, and looking to try and he's in 6th place at the minute, is Brennan. That's up from 10th, so that's a fantastic start from Jordan.
Yeah, that was a great move into the hairpin there, Jordan. Really late on the brakes, nice and clean. Got the car rotating and then just got on the power nicely. You know, he hasn't run Robin wide there. He's just held his line. Very similar to what Lewis did on was it Verstappen, I believe, in F1. You know, a clean move, got the job done. Robin's down to 7th.
Yeah, very much so, and they're still nothing's over though. These cars, when they're all just a couple of tenths apart, you're still close enough for the slipstreams. We've seen Robbie Stapleford is definitely close enough for a slipstream, and he's hanging on to the back of Mike Epps here. And I'm just wondering what's going through Mike Epps' mind. He's probably just focusing on where he needs to put his car. But Robbie Stapleford through those corners is really closing up with that what we think is a higher downforce setup.
Yeah, you can just see, I wonder whether Robbie's car just isn't sliding as much, is it? It's just really hooked down. You can see he's right on the back of Mike here. What we haven't touched upon is, you know, when these cars get within sort of 2 car lengths of the car in front, you get what's called dirty air, which is, you know, turbulent air generated by the car in front. So what Robbie's doing here is actually incredibly impressive, to hang on the back of a car that was essentially 3 or 4 tenths quicker in qualifying.
Yeah, very much so. And you saw there where Mike Epps moved across onto the inside line and Robbie didn't follow him. He just definitely, Robbie didn't have the straight line speed to do anything to get alongside or anything. He was just literally, he's hanging in on that slipstream, and I think it's a slipstream that's keeping him in touch, obviously, until they come to that latter end where he seems to have more downforce. He can stay closer, stay in that dirty air and keep the pressure on Mike Epps, as we were watching Oliver and Walters is that.
Yeah, unfortunately, Robin just seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time there. There's nothing Robin could have done there. That was just a very late lunge by Charlie there, late on the brakes, you know, and just caught the back end of Rob, who was the car in front of the car he was trying to overtake. But what I've noticed is what's really impressive is, as I believe, this is Robbie going for a move on Mike Epps in the high aero part. You can see Mike hasn't defended that too much to try and lock moves that time. Both run a little bit wide. Mike really needs here just to try and get the car underneath him, maximise this corner exit and try and get out of this turn 1 cleanly and get the slipstream all the way down to turn 2.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Robbie Stapleford's now put himself in the position of first place, and he's going to come under attack, I'm sure, from Mike Epps, as Mike Epps just ran it a little bit wide over that curb, got the car very, very loose and a little bit out of shape, but as you would expect from Mike Epps, kept it, got it all back in line, and hasn't lost too much ground on Robbie Stapleford, and he's definitely closing on the slipstream now as Robbie goes defensive, and he will, I think, just manage to keep that position. But it's all about now Mike Epps getting the run out of this corner, and as you can see, he's already on the gearbox of Robbie Stapleford. Robbie's going defensive, he's staying on the inside. Mike Epps really closing. Interestingly, Mike's backing off. He's not attempting to make a move, really, is he? He's just...
Yeah, so this ironically is what I was actually talking about in, I think it was before the quali started or whatever, was about if 2 drivers think they've got the speed on the cars behind, they may work together to help pull away further with the slipstream. And I believe that's what Mike just did there. You know, he knows Robbie's got great pace. Mike's happy to settle for second. I wouldn't say he's happy to settle for second. No driver is happy to settle for second, but maybe he thinks Robbie's got a little bit more pace. He can drop in behind, get in the slipstream, and help pull that gap away from third place. You know, just because you're versing someone in a championship doesn't mean you can't work together to try and, you know, capitalise on the track's conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. If it works for both of you, then it works, doesn't it? But interestingly now, just looking at Jordan Brennan, who's up to fifth and just absolutely lost it there in the last corner, just trying to apply too much right foot just before he was really, you know, coming to the exit of the corner, and it just the rear tyres protested and threw him sideways. Good recovery job, but all that hard work now done as he's dropping back down to I think 11th place at the moment. So yeah, he was up to 5th place, but now back down to 11th. But Robbie Stapleford, he's got a half-second gap on Mike Epps now. If we can just you know, go back to those two. Robbie Stapleford, he got past at the right time. He got past on the track at his weakest point. We've seen Charlie Oliver recovering now and looking like he's trying to go around the outside of Jordan Brennan. Not sure if that's going to work or not. Jordan Brennan's got the inside, gets it turned in, leaves a respectable amount of room for Oliver, and Oliver's still alongside him, so this is going to battle on to the next corner as well. And it looks like Charlie Oliver's actually got the job done and got in front of him. But yeah, Robbie Stapleford, he overtook Mike Epps for me at the right part of the circuit. He got past him at Robbie Stapleford's weakest part of the circuit. So when it came to the strongest part, as we've seen, these two, Oliver and Brennan, they're not going to let me finish, are they? Because they're just going to battle hard. Absolutely, yeah, wheel to wheel, no contact, great respect, and very, very close racing indeed. But yeah, so he may potentially have broken that toe from Epps, because Epps is dropping back now. He's 6/10 back on him. So Robbie Stapleford might have just played an ace card there.
Yeah, I wonder whether Mike Epps has maybe just pushed his tyres too hard a little bit early on in the race. What'll be sort of key is to watch the gap between Mike and Jack in third place. If that gap doesn't really change, then it will probably suggest, you know, that Robbie is really just, you know, up in the ante here. But I believe I just caught in the corner right there. Jordan Brennan with another spin in the later part of that track. Hopefully he can get up and running and not lose too many places, because all you've got to think is this is looking like it's going to be a terrible points haul for him in first race, but that reverse grid, all he needs to do is finish 12th place, and that's a reverse pole. So, you know, he can turn this whole race meeting round and you know, come away with good points if he just drives this with his head a bit more and, you know, thinks of that reverse race.
Yeah, absolutely. We can see Charlie Oliver here battling hard with Carroll, and Charlie Oliver's car obviously has got a lot of damage. You can see the front wing, the rear wing, both damaged. That's going to be hurting him a lot, but still Charlie's doing a fantastic job, and he's up into 7th place now. So, but it's looking like yeah, just seeing Charlie Oliver going back, trying to stay around the outside of Isaac Smith, but Isaac Smith just recovering, and also Carroll going back underneath Oliver, but Oliver repaying the compliment and getting the position back. So battling hard all the way through the grid tonight.
Yeah, I can't imagine, looking at the state of Charlie's car, I can't imagine that's driving very nicely. So Charlie's doing a great job here in 8th place, just to keep pardon me, keep the pace that he's on. Isaac must have had a problem there, because he's dropped right off the pace of where he was, which I believe was up near Max Bird. But you can see we've got Andy Carroll behind Charlie Oliver here. You know, he's really finding that he's got that straight line advantage, because if you look at the state of Charlie's wing, you know, it's crooked. It'll be really hindering his straight line performance. So, you know, Andy Carroll here is really thinking, you know, I've got a good chance here into turn 2 to have a good move here.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Charlie Oliver's driving it like he stole it. Literally, he's having to really work very, very hard to keep that car where it is, currently in 8th place. But it's a tentative 8th place, because Andy Carroll's got something to say about it as he moves on to the attack now, and potentially around the outside. But Charlie Oliver tries to brake a lot deeper, and does, and keeps it relatively tidy on the exit. And Andy Carroll still tucked in behind him, albeit there's a little bit of a gap, maybe enough of a gap that Carroll might not be able to attack him into the next corner. But Isaac Smith's checked out from these two, and whatever his issue was that let Oliver past earlier, he's recovered, and he's got his head down, and he's pulling the gap on them while these two guys battle.
Yeah, so what I was going to say about the hairpin you've just witnessed there, where, you know, Charlie went up the inside and Andy Carroll tried to go around the outside, there's 2 line choices into that hairpin that, you know, if you go 2 inside, yeah, it's a shorter line, but the corner is really steep on the inside, and these cars are that stiff with the chassis, they don't have a lot of chassis twist. So if you go too tight in there, the gradient of the track is just too much for the cars to handle. You end up with either a wheel trying to lift or a wheel unweighted, and we've seen a number of drivers there going inside trying to get on the power, and you lose the back end. So for all going wider looks like not the line of choice. It actually allows you to get the car stopped, rotated on a bigger surface patch for the tyres, and get better traction up the hill all the way down to turn 3.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think turn one's a tricky one, and I think if we can call it turn 2, I don't think the one they're on at the minute is much of a turn. So the turn 2, that's the one you're talking about. That's very much where if you, like say, you go too tight, you can turn the car in, and before you know it, you're facing the wrong way, and you don't even really know what you've done just there as the ride up through that apex. But just to draw our attention back to the front, Robbie Stapleford completed 9 laps now. He's got half a second gap on Epps, but that gap is coming back down again because it had extended up to 7 tenths, and it's now dropping back down to sort of 6 tenths, 5 tenths, and even 4 tenths at one point. So I think Mike Epps is just maybe managing his tyres, managing his position, and I think we've got 4 minutes and 44 seconds left on the clock. I think Mike Epps is trying to stay in touch, and maybe we'll have a last minute attack, although he has just made a mistake there and run slightly wide and lost a couple more tenths on Robbie.
Yeah, I think I was maybe a bit too keen to say I think Mike Epps has pushed his tyres too hard, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's looking like to me like either maybe Robbie's pushed his tyres too hard now, or maybe Mike had just backed off, maybe his tyre pressures were getting up a little bit, or tyre temps, and he's just backed off to try and really, as we see here, Jordan Brennan fighting for that 12th place. So This is for reverse grid pole. Jordan needs this to turn this race meeting round.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, Jordan will have that in his mind now, and he's now put himself into pole position for race 2, 12th place in race 1, and I think that'll be pretty much as good as he can get from this race. I mean, obviously, if a driver like Jordan can take 11th place, which is just 1.5 seconds up the road from him, he will take it because it's still the front row for race 2. But he's done his. It's a reasonable recovery drive, is what I'm trying to say, from where he's been tonight.
Yeah, and it's still another point at the end of the day. Every point matters in these championships, the bigger picture with the league standings. He's winning the overall league at the moment, which is all of these championship points. It's not all the points added together, but there's a separate table for that. And at the moment he's winning the League of Champions, which has the bigger prize at the end of it. So he really needs to think of the overall league here and try and just bring them points home. I mean, I'm saying that. I imagine he'd be thinking purely about the race he's doing at the moment rather than thinking of the points. But, he's going to want every point he can get going forwards.
Yeah, for sure. And Mike Epps is, I'm not sure if it is a commentator's curse, but he's now started to drop back a little bit from Stapleford again. He's now 1.1 seconds back, so Stapleford's got himself some clean air. Robbie really needs to be looking at the stopwatch a little bit now, doesn't he? And just trying to think, I've got just over 2.5 minutes left, plus a lap. So potentially just need to start managing position, try and bring the car home, look at that gap between Mike. When Mike attacks, maybe just, he's got to try and respond. He doesn't want Mike to be in that slipstream, does he? Because if Mike gets into that slipstream, it potentially could be race over for Robbie Stapleford.
Yeah, I wonder whether that was Mike just getting within that, two car lengths with that turbulent there, and he just can't hang on the back of Robbie then, he really needs to make it work where he gets within that car length, going out of the corner with one of them long straights to really get that job done. But I think he's just catching Robbie at the wrong time, then he gets dropped, and then he's not there. As we see, that was Paul Laramie getting very sideways. What a save that was to save that coming out of turn 1. As we see Jordan Brennan up into P11, Max Edmondson must have had another little moment there.
Yeah,
and Charlie Oliver has got ahead of Isaac Smith, so quite a big rearrange of the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a few corners ago, I saw Max Edmondson just dropping down the order and tumbled down to 12th place. That's his second, I think I'm right in saying, his second spin of the night. So he's not had the best of race 1s. But again, as we were saying about Jordan Brennan, that's Max Edmondson now on pole position for race 2. We've only got 1 minute 20 seconds of the race left, plus that final lap. So he's looking good for a pole position at the minute. He's 5 seconds behind Brennan. So unless Brennan makes a mistake, he's not going to get past Brennan. But we're looking at Brennan moving on Johnson now, and Brennan's put himself up into 10th, but then lost it, and that's going to cost him. Now he needs to rejoin as quick as he can. That gap between him and Edmondson was 5 seconds, and you can see there Edmondson just comes into shot, and Brennan's got things recovered. Indeed, Edmondson just ran a little bit wide. I think that was maybe the surprise of seeing 11th place Brennan in front of him there.
Yeah, well, I think my reaction there was the surprise to see that car brake the way it did. I mean, that car seemed to be just tracking around that right with no sort of major errors at all, and then all of a sudden, you know, a snap from the rear end. So Jordan did very well there not to completely spin that and keep the car rolling. Yeah, there's something not quite happy there on Jordan's car, is there?
No, definitely not. I mean, you know, we've not seen. I mean, the lap times. You know, they're not that far away from what they were doing at the start of the race. So we're not seeing anybody really with tyres dropping off that's costing them in lap times. But we are seeing a few guys making a few mistakes. But it is an easy circuit to make mistakes at with these cars, and we've just seen Isaac Smith there looking a bit tail happy, and that's Oliver just got off in front of him. So Isaac Smith lost it in one corner. Charlie Oliver lost it in a little bit bigger way in the next corner, and that's gifted Isaac Smith 7th place and cost Charlie Oliver a lot of time as well as a position, and in fact 2 positions so far, maybe more.
Yeah, I can't believe how much this track is really biting these cars to what looks to be on the curbs. You know, that these cars aren't riding these curbs well at all, and it's just basically trying to find out the limit of the track and how hard you can push it without, as we can see, drivers spinning. Hopefully, you know, Jordan will be thinking, right, that's 2 big moments there that I've had. Let's back it off. I can even afford to lose the position to Max here. Just really back it off, bring the car home. You know, maybe tweak the setup going in towards race 2, and then, you know, just get your head down, crawl the points back, and hoping for your other championship rivals to have some sort of a difficult race as well to keep you in that championship battle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the timer has hit 0, so we're waiting for them to come round, and then they will just have they'll be on the last lap once they cross the line next time round. Robbie Stapleford currently with a 1.4 second lead over Epps. If he can keep it tidy now, that's got to be enough time, hasn't it? Realistically, I don't think Mike Epps can recover that in 1 lap, can he? Unless Stapleford makes a mistake.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic drive by Robbie, hasn't it? You know, he hasn't really put a foot wrong. I thought, you know, his car might not be necessarily suited to a good start, and he proved me very much wrong. You know, he kept it. He got ahead of Jack early on in the first lap. The safety car came out, you know, and then he managed to take advantage of his higher aero towards the end of that in lap after the safety car, and just kept chipping away at Mike Epps, and then sure enough got past him, and he's maintained his tyres. You know, it's been a great solid drive, but not to take it away from Mike. You know, Mike's kept the pressure on there. 3rd place, we're seeing Jack just drop off slightly, but you know, Jack won't be too stressed about this. He'll probably see that Jordan's down in below 10th place, and Max Bird isn't really gaining on him, as I believe we see Max Edmondson there having another spin, so I'd imagine Max Edmondson's rear tyres are absolutely shot, I think. Yeah, for sure. Definitely Max Edmondson another spin, but he maybe had enough time between himself and Gallagher in 13th to recover it. But we are now watching Robbie Stapleford, who's the gap's come down a little bit, but I think that's a bit of Stapleford's probably just managing it. Epps is maybe not sure. We'll find out in the interviews, pushing a bit harder to maybe try and close the gap a little bit. But as you say, Stapleford's done a fantastic job. He passed Mike Epps for me when he needed to, which was his weakest part of the circuit. So he did that, and then when he was strong, he's pulled the gap, and once he pulled that gap, he's brought it home for the win. As we've now seen, Stapleford is going to bring it across the line for what is 1st place in race 1, with Mike Epps bringing it up in 2nd. Fantastic driving from both those guys. Jack McIntyre, very, very good drive for a championship contender there, bringing it home in 3rd place for the points that he needs. Max Bird's going to bring it home in 4th. And then we've got Robbie Butler, who can't quite remember where Robbie qualified, but that's a solid position, 5th place for Robbie Butler. Yeah, I can't remember myself where he qualified. I think it might have been 6th or 7th place, so it's a really good solid point haul for Rob Butler there. And I was going to say a driver I was really impressed with there was Andy Dorman. but unfortunately, I think probably 2 laps ago he had a bit of a spin. He's dropped out 9th, but he was sitting a consistent 6th place there, which is a fantastic finish for Andy. But to be fair, they're both Andys there, Andy Carroll and Andy Dorman. It's a great result for both of them. The top 10 finish, and it'll work well for the championship standings.
Yeah, absolutely. And just Isaac Smith was in 6th place. He'd been battling all through the race. Charlie Oliver, good recovery drive. He had a great qualifying session, had a couple of incidents, but he's managed to claw his way back to 7th place and bring it home in 7th. So I think that's fantastic drive from him. As you say, Andy Carroll 8th, Dorman 9th, Johnson 10th, Brennan 11th. Edmondson putting himself on pole position for race 2 with a 12th place finish in this race. Gallagher's brought it home in 3rd. Looks like Rami's going to bring it home in 14th. And Walters, Sutton are in the pits. So not a bad race at all, that one, Dave.
Yeah, it's a shame to see Robin Walters not finish. I think you could see from that race, it was just a case of, it wasn't really anything wrong that he did. It was just wrong place and wrong time. He was collected by 2 cars that weren't his fault at all. So he'll be hoping for a little bit of carnage in front of him and for him to take advantage of that and really progress his way through the field at the start of the second race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all really good racing. For me, it was all close, and I think like I say, I think the driver for race 1 for me has got to be Stapleford. I think that was a really mature drive, but I think the guys are joining us in the commentary booth, so I'm going to leave you to those investigative talents that you have.
I won't let you try and say that one again. No man. Right then, as we go down the commentary booth, and I believe we've got Jack McIntyre, so 3rd place finish for a person who I think in practice would agree that they probably struggled, but yet again qualifying another race with a strong point haul.
Yeah, really happy with that. I got a good tow in quali, so that lap was probably both the best I've done and then with the best tow I've ever had. So that was I'll take it.
Yeah.
But then
well, honestly, mate, the thing is with championship drives, it's a case of capitalising on what you've got. If there's a tow there, you made the best use of it possible, and you've got a great points haul because of that. So no, fair play. You can't say it's all. Look at the draw. You've got to know what to do with it as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like you say, you got to take the opportunities when they turn up. It was a good race. I was kind of hoping the safety car wasn't come out. I saw there was a big check-up behind us, and then Robbie was side by side, so I just let him go with the hope that the 3 of us could just drive off in the distance. But then safety car came out. But thankfully, it kind of just happened that way anyway. I think we had a bit of a scrap just after the safety car, but then managed to get away and yeah, really chuffed.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask about your approach to that. I mean, you probably saw Jordan Brennan was struggling, your main championship rival, throughout the race. I don't know whether you have that on the screen or not when you're watching it. But yeah, do you look at that and then go, well, he's already struggling, so I'm not going to fight this position as hard and just think of the point standing, or do you really try and fight for every position?
A bit of both. I didn't know Jordan had some bad luck there, but yeah, I was just kind of racing my own race. I don't think I had the pace to keep up with Robbie and Mike, so I was just happy to slot in behind and stay consistent and just try and bag a 3rd. So yeah, that all worked out. Oh
well, good solid drive, Jack. Good luck for the reverse race, because it looks like the slipstream round here is absolutely terrifying.
Cheers, mate.
No, right, on to 2nd place, Mike Epps. Good solid drive, but was that tyres strategy or just that aero difference with Robbie's car?
I think aero difference and tyres at the same time. At the end of the day, as long as he nails the last sector, he can hold with me. So yeah. I was sat there like, okay. And when he went for it, I went, okay, all right, we'll let him have it. Because he did it mid through the 3rd sector as well, which obviously means he's still got 1 or 2 more corners to kind of get a good gap that he's stronger than me round.
Yeah.
So I held back on overtaking him initially on the next lap, just because I thought, well, if we do this all race, we'll have Jack involved, we'll have the rest involved.
Yeah.
And then I sort of realised after I'd let him get away by 2 or 3 tenths, I couldn't really drag them back.
Yeah, I mean, I had actually had reports that going into that last sector, which obviously already is advantageous to by the looks of it, the way Robbie's car's set up, but I have heard that there's quite a lot of dirty air in actually following a car. So we noticed you get within probably 3/10 of Robbie, and then you seem to drop back again. I presume that was probably loss of front air or that turbulent air that Robbie was creating.
Yeah, it's a mixture of things. It feels like it's not just front aero but rear. Like overall car balance just goes.
Yeah.
So you sort of, it's not pleasant. It just sort of throws the rear out.
Yeah.
Mid-corner for no sort of particular, with no warning or anything, and that's that. And you're like, brilliant. So yeah, I think obviously now the setup might be a little bit better for coming through. It all depends. But I might be getting the Allen key out and cranking a little bit of wing on, mate.
Oh well, I'll let you go make a few changes before the race, and I'll let you crack on, mate.
Cheers, mate.
And on to our first place driver, Robbie Stapleford, from, I can't remember, was it third on the grid? I believe it was third on the grid. So hell of a drive, Robbie. I take that went to plan.
Yeah, just got a decent start, then safety car come out, and then just went with Mike. And then I started seeing him making mistakes, so I went for it in the third sector because I know I'm stronger, and then defended for a lap, and then just started to pull away and just maintain the gap, and it came home. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether you've been listening to what I've been saying on the stream, but I've been saying that your car looks particularly strong in the last sector. So maybe you're running a slightly higher aero than the other cars on the grid, but it really seemed to benefit you there when the other drivers sort of, drop back, and then you were out in the lead. They just couldn't make advantage of their straight line speed. So fair play on the way you've managed to get the car dialed in there, and you got the hard job done straight away, getting past Jack, really.
Yeah, we were side by side all the way through the first lap, and then I got him going into the third corner, and then the safety car come out, which helped a bit. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I can't take it away from you. It is a great drive there from third place on the grid, no mistakes, and you managed to beat a guy who was going into the race was 0.33 of a second, 0.4 of a second faster than what you did in quali. So that's a great result, and that'll be really helping you in the championship standings. But before time gets on too long, I'll let you go and focus and get on the grid. And good luck going into race 2, Robbie.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
No bother.
So some lively interviews there from our podium finishers. All drove a fantastic race in race 1, but we are now lined up with reverse top 12 for race 2, with Edmondson on pole. Brennan lines up alongside him in second, and then we have Johnson in third, Dorman in fourth. So see how these 4 guys get off the line in front, see if they can keep the rest of the pack behind them, as the lights are now going on and we are about to get things underway. And away they go, and a fantastic start from Edmondson, but Brennan seemed to bog down on the line and almost looked like he'd parked it. So that looks like Edmondson's going to have a clean getaway into turn 1, but let's just be interesting to see where Brennan shakes out in the order in the early start. And indeed, he's really dropped down. He looks like he's going to be losing places hand over fist as we're going 3 and 4 wide down the straight as we did in race 1.
Yeah, this is not at all what Jordan wanted to make of that start. As we go down, I believe that's Isaac trying to go up the inside of Jordan there. Isaac's going to get the traction on exit. Jordan's on the curb there. Max Bird getting squarely behind him. And all of them have the run on Andy Carroll. So down to turn 3 here, Jordan's going to get the job done up the inside. As we see, Mike Epps is also coming through the pack.
Yeah, and Robbie Stapleford just looking further back, got past McIntyre as well early on. He's looking like he's trying to follow Epps through, but Epps is up into 8th now. Jordan Brennan dropped back down. He's settled in 7th place, but Edmondson has got a clean start. Johnson's in 2nd place, Oliver 3rd, Isaac Smith 4th, Robbie Butler in 5th. I mean, look how close they are, Dave. They're almost wheel to wheel. They're going 2 and 3 wide through these corners now. They're really pushing. This is proper reverse grid racing. Yeah,
I'm looking at the timing sheet. I can't keep up. I can't keep up. The positions are just changing so frantically. But yeah, I mean, we've got Robbie here really on a charge here.
He's just got past Epps. He's got past trips. Yeah.
Oh, as I say that. Oh, as Epps is up the inside. That there is what makes a championship driver. Mike Epps was up the inside. Robbie had the overlap. It would have been so easy there for Mike to just keep his foot in. That would have taken Robbie out. Would have taken him out of the race. Just a little tap of the brake, tucked back in, and he's there to fight later on in the race. That's a great drive.
Yeah, great driving from all drivers involved because they all got through that with no contact, and like you say, it's very easy for drivers at any point to keep the foot in, and contact can lead to not one, not two, but 3 and 4 cars, and even more sometimes getting taken out. As we're just looking here now with Epps, and he's got Dorman to his right and Bird, but Epps, it's all a bit confusing as they all go through there. Let's see how things shake out, but it's looking like Epps has gained a few positions, and importantly, he's staying in touch, or trying to stay in touch with Stapleford.
Yeah, I mean, that there, dare I say, I probably represented that a bit like them cooking shows you see where they make a perfect dish and then try it, and then, you think, why are you making that expression? But that overtake there, 2 cars up the inside, using that outside line into that hairpin to really get the traction, get the car rotated, and you saw the traction advantage he had on exit. Doing 2 cars in one corner, that's creme de la creme, should we say?
Wow, that was a yeah, words escape me. But Stapleford's up to 6th place now, closing in on Brennan. He's 3/10 off the back of Brennan at the moment, who's in 5th. Isaac Smith 4th. So still very, very close battling, as you would expect, but Edmondson keeping his nose clean, 1.4 seconds clear of Johnson in 2nd. Charlie Oliver, who didn't have the greatest of the of race 1s, is in 3rd position, so he's looking good, as we've just seen things get a little bit tight through turn 1.
Yeah, I believe that was it was Isaac Smith, maybe. It was Charlie Oliver, I believe. As we see Isaac and Charlie here really battling hard. As this is Jordan Brennan trying to go up the inside of Rob Butler into the hairpin. Late brakes, Jordan trying to get the traction. Rob will get the cut back, but you can see Jordan's got the traction and exit down to turn 3. Rob will be thinking, getting the slipstream here, we might stand a chance, but at the end of the day, Rob's in a good place here. He'll want to bring the points home.
Yeah, never count him out, but Jack McIntyre's not had the greatest start to race 2. He's still down there in he's just putting it into 10th place, albeit if he can make this move stick on the inside of Walters. But yeah, he's not made the progress, obviously, that the other guys have made that started alongside him, and he seems to have been getting caught up in a few little battles and not really getting the overtakes that he needs to get back up into the sort of top half of the field.
Yeah, I'll tell you who has had a good drive. Robin Walters has come from the very back of the grid after his DNF to now running 11th place, battling with Jack McIntyre and Andy Dorman behind him. So that's a great drive from Robin to get nearly into the top 10 already within the first 5 minutes of the race.
Yeah, very much, and that's when you've got to do it, isn't it? That's when you've got to make it count. You make every overtake count, and you hit all those apexes, hit the braking markers, and get on the power as fast as you can, because that's when your tyres are at the best, and there's no compromises that you can make those moves count, as we're seeing Stapleford do. He's up into 5th place now, and he's 1.3 seconds back on Oliver. So let's just watch that time and see how fast that gap comes down, if it does at all. I expect it to.
Yeah, as we see there, Martin Johnson nearly got taken around the outside off by Isaac Smith. Martin Johnson, fair, he's trying to give Isaac a hard time there. He's going, you're not coming around the outside, but Isaac just managed to get the car rotated enough. But as you see, Martin Johnson's actually come back. Charlie Oliver up the inside, 3 into 1. Oh, we knew that wasn't going to work, didn't we?
No, and that's just gifted Stapleford 2 positions and put Stapleford back on the podium for race 2 after a race 1 win. So already after 3 laps, he's on the podium from 12th place on the grid.
Yeah, I mean, what we should look at here really is Max Edmondson. I'm trying to touch wood here. I'll touch wood again. There we go. Max Edmondson, 4.5 seconds in the lead. I'm not saying he's laughing, but he really just needs to manage his tyres here. We saw in the last race, maybe he cooked his tyres a bit too much. It's really hard once temp gets into these tyres to get them back out. So he really needs to just watch his tyres, drive a really smooth race, even if Charlie starts closing that gap. Don't push the car too hard, let the race come to you, and this race should be Max's.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's looking like Stapleford's really pushing as well, as we're looking at Rob Butler now in 6th place, but battling very, very hard with Max Bird and Jack McIntyre close behind, and close behind Jack McIntyre is still Walters and Dorman, so it's there's a few cars involved here if anything goes wrong, but it's Max Bird has got past Butler there before they even get into the braking zone of turn 2.
Yeah, I believe actually on the timing sheet, I believe Robbie Stapleford's actually got ahead of Charlie Oliver as well, as that's Jack McIntyre round. So as we saw in race 1 with Jordan Brennan having a nightmare, this is Jack McIntyre having a nightmare. These are the two championship rivals having almost back-to-back races of similar sort of styles.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, that was turn 2, obviously, where we talked about in race 1 that obviously the angle of the corner, it can really sort of almost upset the cars to the point that they spin. It's if you go too tight, I'm just wondering if someone went a little bit tight and one spin caused a collision or something like along those lines. But whatever happened, it's put McIntyre now back down to 14th. Walters is in 13th. So it's Jack McIntyre not having the greatest race 2 after a very sort of sensible, mature drive in race 1.
Yeah, unfortunately these things happen. I mean, we can speculate what happened in that hairpin, but I mean, whether it was Jack sort of the car breaking loose for him and him spinning it, which isn't a characteristic Jack normally does, or whether it was something happened in front where Jack's tried to avoid it, and because of how what I'm trying to say there, how gradient the corner is, or how steep the corner is, maybe Jack is trying to respond and the car's just bit on him. So it'll be interesting to try and find out what happened there. As you see, this is the battle for 3rd place. Mike Epps going for the move on Charlie Oliver.
And Stapleford up into 2nd already. I noticed that as you were sort of chatting away there, Dave, that Stapleford had got up into 2nd, and Mike Epps making short work of getting past Charlie Oliver. So we've got Stapleford and Epps back on the podium. The gap from Stapleford to Edmondson is 5 seconds, albeit by a tenth. Epps is 1.1 further back from Stapleford. So again, as I said earlier, those are the gaps to watch now for that podium, to see if Stapleford can close on Edmondson, and if he does, whether he takes too much life out of his tyres in doing so. He's good. I think for me, Stapleford needs to really potentially just manage his tyres and just think, you know what, 2nd place is a fantastic result for race 2, fantastic championship points with a win and a 2nd. That would be an absolutely awesome result for him this evening.
Yeah, well, I'm just actually trying to get up here the current championship stands the way they are. While Charlie Oliver down to 10th place as well after a little spin there.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah,
I believe there's Andy Dorman fighting with Isaac Smith here. So yet again, Andy Dorman having a great race up into the top 10.
Very much so. Jordan Brennan, just looking as well, we've got Edmondson leading, Stapleford 2nd, Epps 3rd, Brennan 4th, Max Bird 5th, Rob Butler 6th, Isaac Smith 7th, Andy Dorman 8th, Johnson 9th, Carroll rounds out the top 10th. Charlie Oliver there after that little spin, he's now down to 11th. We've got Mick Sutton in 12th, Jack McIntyre having a nightmare of a race down in 13th, Robin Walters in 14th, Gallagher 15th, and Larami in 16th. As we're now looking at Dorman and is that
Isaac Smith?
Isaac Smith, sorry, yeah. So Dorman has now just got past Isaac Smith for 7th place, so battling hard, and they do have Johnson just in the background, potentially waiting to pounce if they tangle wheels.
Yeah, so that you saw there in that hairpin was exactly what I was on about. Isaac Smith there was with the tighter line, which you would think is faster. Andy Dorman round the outside managed to get on the power harder, had the traction, and managed to get about a car width. As we see, Andy Dorman trying to go up the inside here. A fantastic race not to hit wheels there. Will he try and hang it around the inside of this? I would have thought so. Isaac gave him room. Isaac's ran a little bit wide. Andy Dorman probably gave a little bit too much room there back on Isaac, and he's probably lost another car there. Yeah, this is bringing Martin Johnson right into the picture.
It is, but that's great awareness from those drivers there, great respect and fantastic racing. Like you say, maybe a little bit too much room given, but for me, better that way than tangling wheels and causing an incident.
That's true.
Fantastic racing, and the slipstream's going to really take effect now for all 3 cars. I think Johnson's maybe not quite close enough to get on the gearbox, but I'm sure he'll be feeling some sort of benefit where he is there.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the championship points here. Whoa, as Andy Dorman has a slide, that's great. Anyone who has driven these cars, to hold a slide like that, the difference in here between a car snapping and putting you in the wall and catching it and saving it is such a fine margin. So that's a great drive there by Andy Dorman. I'm really impressed this week.
Yeah, and while we're watching these guys battling away, and that's a treacherous turn and that's contact. And
again, the save.
Good save, and I think, to be fair, I think that was a case of... Johnson was just lifting on the throttle a bit as well. I don't think he wanted to push him round. So again, I think good driving from all involved.
Yeah, it was respectful driving. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Stapleford, he's got the gap down to 3.3 with 8 minutes to go. So Edmondson does need to watch that time. He does need to potentially, try and manage that gap a little bit better and maybe start to put some faster laps in.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if I was in Max's position whether I'd be reading it like that. We know Robbie's really fast, but we're in a position here, as we see, Max Edmondson's dropping down. I can only presume that must be a spin. Robbie Stapleford's been promoted up in the first, and Mike Epps in the second. So we don't know what's happened there.
Maybe Max Edmondson did read it like me, pushed it a bit too hard, and maybe just he's gone beyond the limits, and it's cost him some time.
Oh, that's a real shame. I hope that wasn't my first commentator's curse. It might have been. I'm sorry, Max.
I don't think it was your first one, mate. I think you've done it before. But we've got Robbie Stapleford now potentially on for the double win this evening, which from a very talented young driver as Robbie Stapleford, that would be an absolutely awesome result for him. But Mike Epps is 1.2 seconds back. Will he want to take 2 second places tonight? You can bet your bottom dollar he's going to go for the win. As we've just seen someone spinning off there, I think that was Butler. Yeah, Butler lost it and he's dropping down the order and did well not to have some contact there as he was trying to just get the car pointing in the right direction. But Rob Butler's now dropped down to 11th place, so a bit of disappointment for Rob there.
Yeah, I imagine that probably came with a good shout of Irish anger, that I would imagine. Yeah, I mean, I'm just actually having a look here at the championship points. Robbie came into this, I believe, 5th in the championship, and he's actually promoted himself up to 3rd after race 1, up to 64 points with Jordan Brennan 66 and Jack McIntyre on 76. So I can't quite work out the maths here, but I believe if Robbie Stapleford wins this race, he'll actually go from coming into this round 5th in the championship to actually having the overall lead, which is an outstanding drive to come away with.
It is, and shame on me, because when I was mentioning the championship contenders at the start of this evening, didn't even mention it because I was focusing on the top 2, top 3, to be fair, and that just goes to show with the point structure we've got how fast things can change at one round.
Yeah, I mean, we can see how fast and frantic these races are, but I think we've probably got the point system about right here for the championship that allows the championship to stay interesting all the way to that last round.
Yeah, I agree 100%, mate. Yeah. But, Stapleford has still got it to do, because Epps is closing. That gap is just a shade, and it is only a shade under a second now to Stapleford. So he's definitely, Max, Robbie Stapleford this time is going to have a little bit more on his plate than he had in race 1. I think Mike Epps is a seasoned racer. He's not going to make, if he did make any mistakes, he's not going to make the same mistakes twice. He's going to push hard. He's going to try and get back onto that gearbox of Stapleford, and he's going to put Robbie under some extreme pressure, I believe, very, very soon.
Yeah, so we're on board here with Mike Epps. He's 0.8. I reckon if he gets within that 0.4, he's going to think this is on, but that's when we get that turbulent air, like you said, really affects the balance of the car, and he might just think this is not worth throwing away a second place for the sake of getting an extra few points here. But the interesting battle I'm looking at is between Jordan Brennan and Max Edmondson. Now, Jordan Brennan now will be thinking Jack McIntyre's back where I was in race 1. I really need this podium to make these points work, and that will put us right in contention with the overall championship.
Yeah, very much so, and that's what it's all about. But I mean, do you think Robbie Stapleford will be thinking, if Mike Epps gets on his gearbox, you know what, I don't really need this win, second place will do me just as well, and it'll put me in contention for... I don't know if he will he? He'll just... Robbie Stapleford will be going for the win tonight.
Well, to tie it in, I sort of hope, I'll back what Dave Jones has posted on YouTube there. Let's have a photo finish. I would agree, it'd be quite good to see a slipstream last lap and a photo finish across the line. But I'll try and work out the points. I'm not going to promise this one, but I'm really interested to see the championship points after this race is done, because this might put 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th all within about 3 or 4 points, which will be incredible going into the last round of the championship.
Yeah, and that's what makes a great championship, when the point structure is like that it can keep things as close as that, and it's a battle between not just 2 drivers but 3 or 4 drivers, potentially maybe even more, going into the last race, and it's all to play for. No one can sit back and rest on the laurels. They've really got to come to work, and they've got to work hard and go for the wins. That's what we want to see as we're looking at Max Bird now, chasing down Isaac Smith and chasing down Jordan Brennan, and looking like he's looking tasty for 4th place, as you were sort of saying. Brennan really could do with that podium. I think he's going to have Max Bird to worry about before he can worry about Edmondson.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't actually mentioned Max Bird a lot, which I don't know how with the car coloured that brightly. Impressive first race drive and another impressive second race drive. There's nothing this lad is doing wrong. It's 5/10 down with Mike Epps here on the lead of Robbie Stapleford. So this now, Mike Epps is thinking, now this is on. This is on now. But we'll just see going into this last part of the track. Are we going to see Robbie just open that gap again? Has that gap been closed all with that slipstream, or is Robbie's tyres maybe starting to go off a bit here?
Do you know what? I think Mike Epps potentially will have had that Allen key out in the break between the races, and I think he will have adjusted his aero ever so slightly, because I think he like I say, I don't think he'll make that same mistake twice. I think he's probably got a bit more of a compromise on the downforce, and it's working for him, because I think he'd got it to within sort of 4/10. Robbie's eked out a 10th there on him, but I don't think, it's not as impressive, or it's not as drastic as the first race, where he pulled out half a second on him very, very quickly within a lap. I think we're literally talking about a couple of tenths here, so we might see Mike Epps very much on the gearbox of Robbie Stapleford once they come back onto the start-finish straight and the first slipstream section. And if he can do that, then along the second straight, third straight, he's game on for an overtake.
Yeah, I would have thought Robbie Stapleford will have sweaty palms right now, as we see on board here with Jack McIntyre battling with Rob Butler. Now, we know from past, this has been frantic. These drivers have had several collisions. Rob is, a very aggressive driver. Jack wants these points back. We'll wait and see. But to be fair, Rob hasn't defended that hard at all, has he? He's going to go for the cutback. Jack gets a little bit squirrely on the brakes, but fair play to Rob. Gave him the gap. And Jack's in chasing Andy Carroll.
Yeah, and somebody else just, I think, went off at the back there. I think that was Johnson having another moment as I went through turn 1. But yeah, Epps is now 6/10 behind Stapleford, and that gap seems to be holding, or it has done for the last sort of half a lap or so. So it'll be interesting to see if Epps can pull it down. But let's not forget, Epps is going to be working just as hard as Stapleford, so the tyre wear is going to be the same for both of them. As we see Max Bird now really putting Brennan under a lot of pressure, and he's right on the back of his gearbox, and Brennan's going to be feeling him breathing down the back of his neck.
Yeah, this isn't what Jordan needs, to be fair. Max is in his slipstream, in Jordan's slipstream, sorry. He's putting the pressure on, but Jordan really needs to get his head down and actually chase Max Edmondson to get them points. So having Max in his mirrors here, it's not doing him any favours, but fair play to Max. He is driving the wheels off this car to stay on the back of Jordan here, and I wouldn't be surprised in the closing stages if it's this close. He'll be in that slipstream and he'll put one up the inside.
Yeah, it looks like Epps has made a bit of a mistake, because he's now 2.5 seconds back from Stapleford. The clock has hit 0, so all Robbie Stapleford, and I say all because I don't think I could do it, but Robbie Stapleford just needs to bring it home, cross the line, and go on to the final lap of the race. So he's literally got the lap he's on now and one more lap to finish to make it a double this evening. He's got a cushion of 2.5 seconds back to Epps, who has put some pressure on him in the latter third of this race, it has to be said, but Robbie hasn't put a foot wrong so far. He's just kept it going, he's driven his lines, he's done what he needs to do, even when the gap was getting smaller. As I said, it was Epps that was having to work hard, and it looks like Epps made a mistake, and it's cost him a couple of seconds. But another man that's putting the pressure on is Max Bird here in 5th place. He is relentless. He's really pushing Jordan Brennan now, and Jordan Brennan really, he won't even be thinking about that 3rd place now. All he's thinking about is, I need to hang on to this 4th place, because points make prizes, and he really really does need to hang on, but Max Bird is doing everything in his power to put Jordan under pressure. He's really staying in the slipstream, and the dirty air, yes, it's affecting Max. We can see Max is running a little bit wide here and there, but he's doing a sterling job of keeping absolutely as tight as he can to the back of Jordan Brennan now as they come through the final turn and onto the start finish. And Max Bird just got that a little bit wrong as he turned in just that little bit too soon for me, and he clipped that sausage curve on the inside, which really unsettled the car there, Dave.
Yeah, well, what I've noticed there is Jordan Brennan, that last lap is only 1.6 seconds off Max Edmondson in front. So this might not be over yet, depending on how hard Jordan pushes it. You know, they're not lapping nearly the lap times they were doing at the start of the race. So there's definitely time in the laps yet. But yeah, what a save from Max Bird. That was so very nearly a huge snap into the wall. So to save that, he needs to just regain it, bring it home in 5th. He's done a stellar drive in race 1, another fantastic drive in race 2. He'll be happy with the point standing there.
Yeah, but Robbie Stapleford, what a drive. What 2 fantastic drives this evening. He started this race in 12th place. He fought his way through the grid. He's got what looks like no damage to those wings, which when you're battling your way through a pack of cars, open wheelers, that's saying something. But to get up into first place and then to take the pressure from a driver of Mike Epps' standing is absolutely fantastic. And he's done what he needs to do as he comes around the final couple of corners now, and he's going to put himself in a fantastic position to really contend this championship next week at the final round, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to break it to him that I think at the moment he is currently winning the championship now. I don't want to break that to him in case it's not right, but yeah, fantastic drive from Robbie. You know, I think he'll admit himself. I'm going to ask him in the interview, sod it. I'll ask him in the interview. You know, he hasn't had the first 2 rounds that he probably thinks he deserves. But, you know, to come into round 3, have the car underneath him, it's maybe a track that he's really getting on with, and 2 wins, it doesn't get any better than that.
No, absolutely fantastic drive. So at the moment, as it stands, we've got Robbie Stapleford has brought it home for the double this evening, a race 1 and a race 2 win. Mike Epps, race 1 and a race 2 third place. Max Edmondson for race 2 third, Brennan 4th, Max Bird 5th. So Brennan hung on to that 4th place from enormous pressure from Max Bird. Isaac Smith 6th, Charlie Oliver 7th, Dorman 8th, Butler 9th. McIntyre recovered it up to 10th place, but not a great race for Jack. A few incidents and whatnot, maybe some of it was out of his control, but you know, he brought it home in 10th place. Carroll 11th, Sutton 12th, Johnson 13th, Larami 14th, Gallagher at 15th, and Walters 16th. Fantastic, both races this evening, Dave. I'm sure you'll agree. I think they were possibly the best races of the season so far for these cars.
Yeah, I think it probably was. I knew Red Bull Ring was going to provide some good entertainment. You know, 2 or 3 big long straights for possible slipstream. Yeah, it's provided great racing and actually relatively clean racing as well. You know, only 1 safety car tonight.
Yeah.
No double safety car during the races. You know that. This is what we come and want to spectate it for. You know, it provides good close racing, and we've ended up a championship that is going to go down to the last round yet again.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention that as well, Dave. You know, the fact that there was no need for a safety car in race 2, because the safety car does a fantastic job when we have those incidents and people spin off. We bring the safety car out. It gives everyone a chance to regroup, and we obviously get the green light racing again as soon as everyone's groups up. So it's great for that. But in race 2, there was no need for it. Fantastic respect to all these drivers, you know, for keeping it as clean as they did, because as we saw in those opening laps, 2, 3 and even 4 wide at points, and not just on the straights, going through some of the corners, they were 2 and 3 wide. It was absolutely fantastic, and we saw lots of demonstrations of very, very respectful racing between the lads tonight, all the way through the field. So great stuff from VRRC.
Yeah, for sure. I believe we've got have we got the lads in? Well, I think we've got the lads in the interview now, so I'll jump down and we'll get you down in, Steve, as well, and we can have a good on chat.
We'll have a chin wag, let's go.
We like a good chin wag, us northern people, eh? Right then, down in the interview room, we'll start off with 3rd place. Max Edmondson. I gave you the commentator's curse. I don't know whether you're there. Are you there? Is Max Edmondson there? It will be push to talk, buddy.
He's just repaying the favour, Dave, because
He's
you
repaying his
cursed him.
repair. That's because I put him down as the wins in the bag, isn't it? He's leaving us cold here, isn't he? Is it there now, Max? It's not there. He's left me cold. Right. Anyway, we'll come back to Max if he comes back. But on to second place. Oh, he's there. Was that Max?
Yeah. Max is in the channel. But yeah.
There's Max there. Oh, sorry, mate. I thought you were leaving me cold there because I did put you down as the win is yours. You've got a 4.5 second buffer, and then I believe you span it. And yeah, sorry for the commentator's curse there.
Back tyres were gone. I think my pressures were a bit wrong, and I made a tiny mistake and just put it straight in the wall. But I think Mike and Robbie were going to catch me anyway. They were way too fast for me.
Yeah, it's a real shame to drop the win, but to be fair, the recovery drive, I know how hard it is to get these tyre pressures and the tyre temps down after you spin. You know, you've spun, you've ended up still finishing in third place, holding off Jordan Brennan there. You know, it's still a stellar drive going forward with race 2.
It wasn't too bad, but after race 1, I didn't do that well in race 1, so obviously that helped me with the start for race 2. But
well, I've heard that Santi might possibly be bringing you an upgraded wheel going into the second, the last race of the championship. So, might we see you on a direct drive going into the last round?
Yep, hopefully it will make me faster. Probably not, but we'll always try.
Well, good luck with that, buddy, and watch your wrists.
Yep.
Yeah, well done, Max. And yeah, it's not always easy to come back into race 2 after a bad race 1 and the nightmares of that. But even after you made that mistake, as it were, you lost the back end there. It was still a good recovery drive. So well done, buddy.
Thank you, Steve.
Right, on to second place, and Mike Epps yet again, another stellar drive from near the back of the grid. Did you think, Steve? I'm going to take Steve's line here. Did you have the Allen keys out going into race 2?
I did, yeah. I did. I had to make some sort of change because I looked at the difference in.
I knew it.
Yeah. I was sat there like, right, I've got to choose like a small compromise, not too much. Might have overdone it, because I think some guys are running what I was running or something similar on the way through. So I was coming off the hairpin at the top of the hill, and 2 gear changes later, I'm literally defending for my life for 6th or something.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, oh god, it's gone the wrong way. But it is a lot better through the last 3 corners. So it's a compromise. I think the lap time shows that it's definitely a better race car. But I think credit to Robbie, he's obviously spent some time fine tuning that, and in the race, like he's just the better car out there, if you ask me. Few little skirmishes on the way through, like I was ahead of him coming through the pack, and then there was, I don't know, Robbie might remember because he was behind and I was in it, but there was 3 or 4 cars in the last sector and I just got bunched in, and
yeah,
that was that, so I ended up falling back. But no, good race all the same. Massive, like almost race ending error about 2 laps from the end, so I just nursed it home with 12% on my rear left. So.
Yeah, well, that was actually, there was 2 things I wanted to ask you about. So the first one was what sort of happened, because we noticed you were getting within sort of that second bracket of Robbie, and then you dropped to 2.5 seconds. So where on the track did that happen? And I take it you nearly put it in the wall.
Yeah, last corner I just went in a touch hot, and you know these things, they kind of snap out on you. But unless you're literally eagle-eyed staring at the nose of the car on the screen, you don't notice it until it's a little bit late. It's almost like, whether it's, I doubt it's my steering setup because I'm fairly full on with it. But it's just like, it just gets away from you before you have time to manage it sometimes, and it just snapped, and I was on, I don't know, 180 degrees of opposite lock at the apex, so I just used all the runoff and got it back and carried on. So I think I had pace, but it's just so tricky once the rears have worn. So one of those, but yeah, good fun. I guess fastest man on track doesn't always win, hey?
Well, that's what it shows, you know. You were fastest in quali, but maybe under race setup, you know, that higher aero really just helps when the tyre starts to go off, just to give you that bit more confidence in the car and a bit better balance. But the last thing I was going to ask you was, we did actually see on stream that moment you're on about, and it was about 4 or 5 cars all going into the last corner together. And I actually, praised you for how well you dealt with that, because I saw Robbie coming in from the very outside the track, you on the inside line. It was looking like your nose into the side of his car, and like last minute you brake checked yourself, backed out, tucked in, and I said, that's the drive of someone who has, first of all, great awareness and great racecraft, because that could have very easily ended up in a complete, load of carnage. I haven't mentioned that word yet. Carnage.
That's a good sign, isn't it? You've got to the end of the race meeting and we haven't said that word yet. But
well, I'll tell you why. I've had people say I use the word carnage far too much. So I've took note tonight, and that's the first time I mentioned it. So they can't get wrong for that.
Also, was that your first commentator's curse, Dave? Was that your first experience of it? I feel like I want to say welcome to commentating now. That's you're officially fully in now.
We'll make
driver with your words.
Yeah, we'll make that officially his first one, but I don't know if it is.
That's his initiation. No, cheers guys. Yeah, good stuff. I think this track, I really do any laps around here on any sim, so it's been a little bit of a learning process anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, really good fun. It's a shame for all the tech issues earlier in the season, because that drives like today would have been just what you want for the championship.
Yeah, well, if you stay in the interview chat here, you'll actually hear me tell Robbie Staple for the championship stats, and you might be pleasantly surprised whereabouts you are and how many points you're on. So, yeah.
Good job you said that, Dave, because I was just about to tell Mike where he was, so I won't spoil it. Yeah, off you go, mate.
Right, and on to our race winner, yet again, Robbie Stapleford. What a drive.
Wow, I'm really surprised about that. First drive, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, to go through the grid the way you did, without a safety car, so there wasn't any extra bunching, a hell of a drive, because there wasn't any damage on the car, or what appeared to be any damage on the car. And, you were battling in packs of, surrounded by 4 cars, and you just seemed to drive through them, get the laps in, and then drive the way you did in race 1, not putting a foot wrong, looking after the tyres and bringing home the win.
Yeah, I think they've just all got their cars set up for down the straight, so once it comes to like the last 2 sectors, I couldn't just get them by them easy because they've not really got corner speed.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether you want to know this, but you're going to find out anyway, because I'm going to tell you. But essentially, championship-wise now, that's actually put you at the top of the championship standings by 3 points. So how it all turns around, because I believe you went into this 5th place in the championship?
Oh, 6th.
6th place in the championship, and you've come out of round 3, top of the championship, taken it to round 4. There's the standings there. Mike Epps has brought himself up to 77 points, which is 4th place. So, he's within chance of the title. You got Jack McIntyre in 2nd place on 82, and Jordan Brennan on 79. So this championship is a proper 4-way battle going into the 4th round. It's anyone's game. I take it now, is the pressure on a bit more?
Yeah, definitely. When I was in 6th, I didn't really feel any pressure because it was Brendan and McIntyre would just have to keep the position and not make any mistakes, where now I've just not got to make any mistakes, absolutely, and just keep it clean.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to actually ask you that. Going into this round, with you being down in the championship, you probably thought the championship was neither here nor there. It was sort of gone. But taking that pressure off, is that why we maybe saw the more relaxed drive? Because I said this in the race, and I said, I'm going to ask you it. The round 1 and round 2 probably weren't the results that you were after, looking at the pace you had. But, a bit more relaxed. You've gone into round 3, and, the results have just shown, you can drive the wheels off this car. Your consistency was there, the results were there, and the point haul was there. So, mega.
Yeah, definitely went in more relaxed. Good to get the 3rd round double win again, like I did in Porsche. So that's all good.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll just wait until whatever the track is next, McGoy, whatever it is.
Yeah, well, I was hoping you were going to pronounce it, because I haven't got a clue what it's called either. I think it's Majoni or Magoni or McGoy or Majoni.
I'll just tell you, boys, I put it in Google Translate and it pronounced it as Majoni. So.
Majoni.
Majoni. Never been around that track, so
whether it, yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll make a fantastic job of it, Robbie, because tonight has been a fantastic drive from both you and Mike. To be fair, both race wins for yourself, Robbie, and 2 seconds for Mike, and fantastic driving from what is not the easiest of cars to wield around, and like you say, coming through the grid there. So I'm looking forward to the championship wrapping up next week with 4 of you battling for the top spot. It's going to be absolutely awesome. So it's a big
watch out,
big
boys. I'm off to practice.
Yeah, well, it's a big good look. It's a big good look from me, Mike, and just keep that Allen key handy, won't you?
Yeah, I might take it with me next time.
Yeah, good luck, boys, and well done on tonight's performance. Absolutely fantastic racing to watch. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, see ya.
Right, and Steve, out the comms box.
Yeah, absolutely.
Time for a coffee, I think.
It was fantastic racing tonight, but before we do final thoughts on tonight, I just wanted to quickly, we have some promotional stuff to do, and this is where we need your knowledge on this one, Dave, because VRRC has got so much going on at the moment, hasn't it, that there's lots of things that either sign-ups are currently open for, or sign-ups are opening very, very soon, and with the exciting racing we've seen tonight, we'd hate for anyone that fancies to go missing out on it. So do you want to run through? We've got obviously the Touring Car E-Series on the screen now, Dave.
Yeah, so we've got the current Touring Car Series that is soon to be for sign-ups. That's going to start on the 30th of January. So stay tuned on our social media for when sign-ups are open for that. It's recently just been supported by Motorsport UK. So, it's accredited series. Watch out for the opportunities there, because that is a huge thing for a championship to get on an E-Series. There's talks about future development with licenses and things like that. So, huge news regarding our Motorsport UK partnership with that Touring Car Series. We've got drivers from British Touring Cars and other pros from other categories. I imagine Mike Epps will almost be sure entering the Touring Cars. We've also got the Mini E-Series, which starts on the 15th, I believe, of January, which I think there's 2 spaces left for that. So if you're interested in that, make sure you get in touch. But also the other 2 championships. As we see there, Mike's put it very nicely on screen there, just so I can read it. We've got Classic DTM coming up and TT Cup still as part of League of Champions. So sign-ups for them are open, and you can join Classic DTM. It's the only one where there's a choice of 3 different cars, so make sure you test. If you get in touch and sign up, we can get you into the practice server, and you can choose them and see live timings against other drivers, sector times, all your telemetry. You get involved, because the prizes, I believe Touring Cars is a prize pool of, I think, 18 grand. Minis has got a chance of a round in a real mini at one of the races this coming year, which hopefully will be COVID free by that point and have a full crowd there. And then also League of Champions has a prize pool at the end with loads of cool sim gear. So get involved if you feel like it, and go and search us on Facebook and get in touch.
Fantastic job, mate. There, yeah, brilliant. Some fantastic championships, some fantastic racing to come in 2021 for VRRC. But I think, unless you've got any more thoughts on the racing tonight, Dave, other than spectacular, fantastic, I think VRRC is signing out now for 2020. We've had a fantastic Christmas, and we just want to wish everyone a happy new year, and hope that 2021 is a lot better than 2020 has been for a lot of us. But from myself, Steve Proudley, and Dave Marshall, that's a wrap from the Red Bull Ring this evening. Thanks for watching. See you next week.
Cheers, Steve. Been a pleasure.
The inside of coats.
Barker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.